Final score at Dens Park, Celtic 3, Dundee 3. I don't know, Paddy, a bit of a thriller. Certainly a good game for the neutral, but we are not neutral, and I don't quite know where to start with it, so I'll put it over to you. What's your initial thoughts?
Yeah, really, really poor performance from us. Overall, I thought that some nice moments in the first half, and I thought there was games we should have been out of sight a bit quicker, but it just wasn't to be the case. And credit to Dundee, they get in our faces, and another game where teams have come out from that low block and really tried to put a bit of pressure on us, and our defence and our midfield haven't reacted the right way. So definite learnings from last night. You could see a manager that was hurting at the end of the game, and I could also imagine that the players wouldn't have been too happy with it as well.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few upset players. I'm glad first and foremost that the manager came out and didn't try and pull any punches or make any excuses. You could tell he was annoyed. He wasn't coming out with any of the wee jokes and quips that he sometimes can. And I think he knows it wasn't good enough. There's absolutely no need for panic stations as such, Paddy. It's not like let's just abandon ship and change system and ditch Callum McGregor and everybody else and stuff like that. But there are issues to be addressed, and we'll cut through them as best we can and try and give our thoughts on where he's at. But there's no doubt he was annoyed, and he also stressed that the players were annoyed. And first and foremost, on the back of a bad result, you do need that. You need to feel the pain of that so that you can address it for next time round.
You do. And I think, listen, we've been quite forgiving at points, especially even after the Rangers game. And I think when we look at the draw at Dundee United, there were fans who were in the right to say that things aren't ticking the way that they were in the first third of the season. But what we do need to remember as fans as well, and I think we're absolutely entitled to be unhappy with the performance at Ibrox, and I would say the same about last night as well. They've still dug in and got a draw, and rightfully so. I think Nicholas Kuhn's shot and attacking Flair at the final minutes of the game brought us into that position, and the shot's on target. So we've earned the draw last night, but Dundee will feel that they had every right to go and win the game. I look at the schedule and I look at the amount of rotation. It's not, this is how our manager is wanting to manage the season, but it's not to say that we've got the team that can do that. And I think that's the big issue that we have at the moment. And I think absolutely everyone under the microscope after last night is okay. I get it, and I get the frustration, and I look at the performance of Austin Trusty, and I look at the likes of Bernardo and Callum McGregor being dragged into that as well. I think that these guys have a point to prove in the next game if they're going to be involved, which I'm sure maybe 2 out of 3 potentially will be. This is what it takes to be a footballer at Celtic, and I think that's what these guys will, I'm pretty sure, be aware of. They will remember that these comments are only 90 minutes, a poor 90 minutes away. And Austin Trusty, go and show why you're worth 6 million. I think you need to show sound mind and sound confidence in yourself that that's a one-off, and get it behind you and just go for it again. The discussion about Callum McGregor rumbling on a little bit more. Again, I just look at the amount of games played. I look at some of the performances of the full team, and not just McGregor. And I think we speak about credit in the bank. He's using it. He's using it.
Do you know, that's a really just a smart way to put it. As such, he has got credit in the bank. He's been such a leader for Celtic. His trophy haul speaks for itself. He's up there with the Billy McNeils and Bobby Lennoxes and James Forrests and Brunies with 23 trophies, something like that. Phenomenal stuff. Callum McGregor has been brilliant for Celtic. And we can all fall prey to knee-jerk reactions. But I think when the evidence stacks up over a bit of time, now I don't think he was terrible or has been terrible, but he set such a high bar for himself. And when he falls below that, and when you're over 30 years of age, this is just how football works, questions will be asked. I thought there was a really good comment last night. If you could sift through some of the madness on Twitter last night, which isn't easy, there's some crazy stuff, but Danny Henderson, who you'll recognise the name, Paddy. He's often get some good comments and some quite smart things to say, and we'll often go back and forward with Danny. And he made a good point. So he was talking about being fed up with the constant chopping and changing, and I had replied back, stating that you have to chop and change during this relentless schedule. Spoken about 9 games in January alone, and whatever else the rest of the season looks like. But he makes the point that you do need to rotate. Therefore, all the more reason to rotate a 30-year-old midfielder in Callum McGregor, 31, I think, not far off 32. Callum McGregor's the one guy amongst maybe a couple of others that doesn't seem to get rotated. And you've got Luke McCowan, 27, fit and fresh. He gets 60 minutes. He's playing well last night. We take him out. Would it not make more sense to take out the guy who's not playing so well, who's a bit older, and maybe replace those legs with fresher legs? What's your take on how we've rotated the midfield, particularly with reference to McGregor?
It's such a difficult one though with McGregor, and the only reason I would say that is that he's the born leader in the team. And listen, he's not what a lot of people are crying out for, and that guy that will take his teammates with the scruff of the neck, and the likes of Scott Brown. He's not a Neil Lennon. He's not a Roy Keane-esque kind of player. I think he's got a bit more quality on the park and does his talking with his football. But he's massive to how the players react, and I think it's a difficult one for him to start calling the shots if he's not up to the speed of the game. And I think that's where, I would expect my manager to maybe see that and think to himself, hang on, maybe take the pressure off him a little bit. But the one person who will ask him if he wants to play is Brendan Rodgers, and the one person that's going to say it all the time is Callum McGregor. So it's a difficult one. I don't think you drop your captain too much. I get where everyone is coming from, and I understand. I'm with it. I do think that he is starting to kind of slow down in that role. But I also think that we're going to really, really see the making of other midfielders in the team. That if we do rest Callum McGregor, who can step into his shoes? I think that's the big one. Is there going to be someone that lays a marker down for that position in the 6? I think we've kind of seen glimpses of all 3 of the midfielders that are performing at the moment. Well, sorry, I'd say 2 in terms of McCowan and Engels. They show glimpses of maybe being in that lower position, but the idea of bringing them back further, I don't think we can afford to. I think they're too important to be playing higher up in the midfield for us. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one, and these games, as we've said, are coming thick and fast, and we need to react quickly after that. We've got 2 big games coming up, so it'll be an interesting week, but I don't think the manager will miss his team.
No, I don't. I think there was some sharp words up there. I think there's no doubt he spoke. We'll get to Austin Trusty shortly, but in his post-match, he said that he needs to be better. He needs to be stronger there, and he knows that, and he accepts that. So obviously they've had those words immediately after the whistle, which is when you should be calling these things out. Thanks to everyone who continues to join us live. Some really good numbers here on Apermo. Joe Doyle, nice to see Joe. Gypsy King, Pat McLaughlin, Sean Boost, amongst others. Joe Doyle coming out with surely we're not calling out Kilmarnock. We're not calling out as such, and it's certainly not a singling out, but there's a few guys at the moment that are below par, or certainly were below par last night, Paddy. I think Callum McGregor himself would admit he's not at his best. Austin Trusty, certainly not. Paulo Bernardo, we know, can offer more. Struggled a bit last night. Adam Ida, there's a conversation to be had there. So, no, we're not calling out Kilmarnock, but we're certainly having that discussion. And to your point, Paddy, I think because he's the captain, it makes it all the more difficult to drop him, because there's the bigger implications of what that means. I think there's no doubt that his teammates at different times and in times of hardship on the park, they look to him, they look to the leader, and they're saying, what's going on and how can we regroup and refocus? And he is so important from that side of things. But ultimately, your first job is to do your on-field role in terms of as a player. And I just think he didn't influence things last night, and he's in such a key area of the park, sitting in the base of that midfield, that if that's not happened, that can affect everything going out the way. So, yeah, to counter what Joe's saying, there are others at play, but Kilmarnock's big enough and old enough to take the criticism, and I just think we need to consider things there. Paddy, let's take it back, I suppose, to the start of the night. The lineup comes out, and the surprise is such as Arnie Engels, on such a rich vein of form. We've been talking about him. He's getting more confident. He's got more authority in this midfield. He's probably in the best spell of form in his short Celtic career so far, and he comes out the team. But I don't really have a problem with it because it is in the middle of a relentless lineup. So I'd rather he didn't start tonight, or last night, sorry, so that he can then start against Kilmarnock and then start against Young Boys. So no big issue with that. And you only get issues, Paddy, when the scoreline doesn't go your way, which it didn't last night. And obviously Nicholas Kuhn doesn't start, but he was just coming back from injury. But two key players on the bench, and it's little wonder actually that those two guys are involved when Celtic go on to get the late equaliser. But your thoughts in general on the lineup?
Yeah, again, I think there was a few eyebrows raised, and you're kind of looking at, obviously, we've seen this rotation now for the last 6 weeks. I think McLaughlin P put up the stat there, the amount of games in 52 days. You know, it's inevitable that we're going to have to rotate like that. What he learned about his team is that, you know, the players that were maybe expected to come in and complete the role and play at the same required level as what your strongest 11 is doing, it's just maybe that little bit off still. And it's good food for thought for our manager and our scouting team as well. There's no mistake about that. That's the learnings from these moments. But what we have to learn about as well is that there needs to be familiarity with who everyone is playing with, and the difference being Kyogo's playing out of position. Adamida has not been in form at all at the moment. It's a real shame to see. And Yang is still, for me, he's not the pace and the outball that Bryson Maeda is. So there's three differences straight away there, and it's not been used to the positions in terms of our two wingers that can slow Celtic down an awful lot. Put inside a bit of a shocker from one of our centre halves yesterday, because I don't think Alistair Johnson was too bad. I don't think Greg Taylor was too bad last night, and I don't think Cameron Carter-Vickers was as well. I just thought it was a bit of a crazy 45 minutes for the big man, and one who want to forget. But this is the character building. This is where we need to learn for these moments, because I don't see us going out and spending money in a centre half in this transfer window. I think that they identified that the wing is an area of concern, and I think that we really need to get that addressed as well. I'm not worried about this. I think I'm seeing a few people saying that we shouldn't be panicking. I'm not panicking. I think that we've got a manager who can definitely see the little gaps, the little areas of concern, and he's very quick to try and address them. And I do think that come Saturday, after the Kilmarnock game, and then come the game on the Wednesday against Young Boys, we'll see a totally different side.
Yeah, and you know, these tests will come along for Austin Trusty. You know, like Engels, he's new into his Celtic career. Callum McGregor's at the opposite end. He's been at Celtic all his life, but this is a test for him. And the big challenge is, how do you respond when the chips are down? It's great when you're winning trophies and the sun is shining, and the sun has been shining for Celtic, and for a large part in recent seasons. But now and then you get these challenges, whether it's in Europe or domestically, as we're seeing at this moment in time. And it is all about how you respond. And I wouldn't be quick to just cancel the Trusty experiment, cancel the Adamida experiment, and I use those words loosely. But you do need to give them a chance to respond, and then if they can't respond, then there's a bigger issue at play. We know Adamida can play. We've seen it with our very own eyes at the second half of last season. So it's not like he'd have just signed in summer and we've just yet to see it. We have seen it. It's just a case of how do we get the best out of him. He's clearly not playing with great confidence, and that's up to the manager and the coaching staff and the player himself to respond. Likewise for Austin Trusty. Loads of really good comments coming in, various questions, so we'll try our very best to get to them. Remember, if you are watching the live, you do need to be a member of the channel to comment here, so there is a link to do so in the show notes, and at that point you can then ask your questions for myself and Paddy. Paddy, in terms of the game action, we score right at the start. Look, McCown's obviously catching some headlines. Ex-Dundee, I think he spent 3.5 seasons there, something like that. Very respectful to the club. He spoke well in his post-match comments, but he's there to win. He's not there to play nice and do any favours to his ex-employers. And we've seen that in the first 5 minutes. Real credit to Greg Taylor. It's a brilliant cross. Greg Taylor making his 200th appearance for Celtic. And say whatever you want about Greg Taylor, bad players can't play 200 times for Celtic. So it says a lot about him, and it says a lot about his character. He's been knocked from day one. From the moment he signed, there's been people quick to shoot down Greg Taylor, and we've had our criticisms of him at different times. But I also think you need to give great credit to a guy who's managed to play 200 times for Celtic. So fair play to that. But it's a brilliant cross in, and it's an even better header. The suggestion or the thinking might have been headed back across goal. There was a couple of guys waiting to put it in, but McCown's only got one thing in his mind, and it's a brilliant start for Celtic.
It's a great start, and I think it's easy coming for a guy at 6'5", but it's the perfect height for McGowan, just to get the power behind it and direct it into the top bin, to the bottom left. It's a great finish from him, and just a great effort from him to get into that position as well, from originally giving the ball out to Taylor. So no, a really, really comfortable goal from him, and I'm sure we'll talk about celebrations of goals, but I think you can allow him not to celebrate against a team that's given him so much, in my opinion.
Yeah. You as tall as 6'5"? I had you down as 6 and a bit. You 6'5"?
6 and a bit, aye. 6'5".
Love it. No, look, McCown, scores a goal and does what has become the modern "I've just scored against my old team" celebration. Just pause up. Sorry, guys.
It wouldn't be me. I would get tore right into the fans. Absolutely.
Yeah, so fair play. And then, beyond that, Paddy, Celtic are very much in control. You might have seen the stats at the end of the game, actually, 80% possession. But I say this a lot, doesn't matter what your possession is, it's what you do with it. And Celtic weren't clinical enough. And actually, could and should have been, maybe 3 goals to the good before Dundee have equalised. Adam Ida's had that chance. It was actually a breakaway. Celtic are very quick on the counter, as we know. We're broken away. Yang has fired one outright to Kyogo. He's very sharp on it, and he puts a brilliant ball across the face of the goal. I know the goalie was coming out. I know it was close. I don't know if he does try to be too cute, but a confident striker just gets on that and smashes it into the net, and he was too delicate in that particular moment. And then, a bit later on, as we know, it's Bernardo who's missed a great chance, and you can remind me who clips it into the middle, but he's right on it. He's facing the whole goals, and he just lifts his head and cracks it off the bar when the whole goal is begging. What do you put that down to, Paddy? Can that just be a bit of bad luck, a bit of misfortune on the day, or do we really need to be more clinical in these situations?
Need to be more clinical, Tino. And I think that, we're speaking about, obviously, the tactics that we're playing, and the tactics are clearly getting us up the park and getting us in behind. We're scoring goals. There's no denying that. What an incredible season for it. But also at the same time, we're changing the team a lot. And with that, there's players that are maybe not getting as many minutes as they want. They're not involved week in, week out. They're not starting games. They're maybe getting 20 minutes, 30 minutes here or there. That does have an impact. There's no point in denying that. It definitely has an impact. But what they need to do is be able to show why they should be the ones starting and why it's up to them. They should be throwing themselves at absolutely everything. Adam Ida's come in for the last couple of games and started, and I think that for me, it's starting to get to him. It really is. You can see it. You can see he just doesn't seem confident in his own ability at points. You reverse the roles on who was going to be one-on-one with a goalkeeper there, and if it's Kyogo, it's a delicate finish above the keeper. You can just put him in that position and know that he's going to score it, in my opinion. And I don't know what the big man's done. I think he has seen the keeper, and I think he's stopped. If I put my leg in here, I could break it. That's been my impression on it. He's pulled away. He needs to be a bit more ruthless.
Just on that, Paddy, comment from Colin Rodgers. Colin says, Ida and Bernardo should have put us 3-0 up. We're just not ruthless enough. Mm-hmm. That's a fair comment. And I think when you're on top in any game, whether it's a game you're expected to win, like last night, or a European game, I'll go back to the famous example of when we were on top against Real Madrid under Ange. Calmac hits the post after 40-odd minutes, but we got nothing each and end up getting pumped 3-0. And you are on top for large spells of that first half. But if you're not ruthless, if you don't take your chances, you'll get what you get. And Celtic invited that on last night. There's a wee debate going on in the comments from Ona Permo and Pat McLaughlin. Ona Permo thinks it's not about form, it's about tactics. And it's 3 games in a year and this 16 points thing. Could be decent excuses, but he thinks it's all down to tactics. But Pat counters that, and I think he's right. We've still scored 17 goals since the cup final. We've had 4 clean sheets, and it's been 20-odd years since we've faced a hectic winter schedule like this. You'll have seen, Paddy, the headline that the winter break is coming back in next season. But at this moment in time, it's fine. So, like, Dundee didn't have a game at the weekend, for example, and that's fine. That's just their programme, but they don't have Europe to deal with and cup finals and everything else. It's life at Celtic, so we're not complaining about it. It's part and parcel. But also the human element kicks in. Fatigue, physically or mentally, can play a part. And I think, so on a Permo, just to catch that, you can moan about the tactics if you want. It's those tactics that have put us where we are. We're within a game of qualifying for the Champions League. We're flying in terms of league stuff. We've got the League Cup in the bag. So the tactics aren't the problem then. So I don't see why the tactics are the problem now. But I do think there's a wee bit of rustiness and fatigue that's kicking in with some of the players. Paddy, let's fast forward then to the Dundee equaliser. It's a counter. It feels like more a Celtic goal than a Dundee goal, but they've caught us in the hop from our own corner. I think Ian Crocker on Sky gave the stat. It was something like 11 seconds after our corner. They've gone and scored. From a Dundee point of view, it's a really good break, but could and should Celtic have done more? Alistair Johnson maybe called into question. What was your take?
Yeah, I think any form of a breakaway, with how far we play up the park, we should be like switched on. We should be quick enough in order to try and address these situations. And listen, we're not going to get every one of them, but I just thought we didn't do enough to try and get back in time. And it's a very good goal. And as I say, I think that goal gave Dundee a lot of confidence in terms of they decided Celtic were there to be got at. And going back, obviously, I can see where Honor Perm was obviously speaking about the tactics. I understand it to an extent, because if you're going to play with a high intensity, you need to make sure your players are fit enough to play at that high intensity and that higher push up the park as well. So there are elements that we do need to be clever. I think we maybe need to manage the game a little bit differently in how far we are pushing up the park, with the amount of games that we are playing now. And I think the tactics and the tiredness go hand in hand with it.
Yeah. Even at that, Paddy, when Dundee have got the goal, it's given them such a huge lift, hasn't it? You know, I suppose because maybe they've done well against Rangers last week. They've got a couple of good individuals. I really like the guy. Yeah. We'll get on to Donnelly, the centre half, and number 8 who scored the kind of deflected goal. His name will come back to me, but they've got some good individuals there. The fella up top that scored the first goal on loan from Burnley. Really need to get up to speed with my names. I'll catch them in just a second.
The young lad,
the young fella, the pacey lad. So their tails were up, you know, because I think they thought 1-0 down in 5 minutes. They're already thinking this could be anything. Maybe should have been anything. But the longer you go without scoring, the more they get confidence and they find their way. Luke McCowan's comment or his phrase was, "We gave them oxygen in the game." That's exactly it. They get their equaliser, they get that lift. And actually getting into half time, you could see the confidence coursing through them, and they were pushing for more than one each, even at that early stage.
Well, absolutely, and I think that, you know, that's in the space of 5 days. They've had 2 draws against Celtic and Rangers. Now we know the difference in the teams this season in terms of the points earned. But both games, Tony Docherty's come away and stated his disappointment for not taking the 3 points, and I think he's got every right to feel that way. I think that, you know, it's good, as I say, we trust our manager, and I think that, you know, we look at what he's achieved as Celtic manager, and we look at what what position he's put us into this season so far. I don't think there's anything wrong now and again just to get a little reminder of, you know, you need to think about, you know, what ifs in this league, what ifs in cup runs, and what ifs in Europe. And I think it's quite refreshing to see how Dundee played against us. I think we all had a bit of lip reading yesterday, and I'm sure we'll come on to the third goal. But you can go and blame your players. You can go and blame some weak mind mentality from Austin Trusty, but at points you also have to say, well, how's my team at a certain point in the game dropping control of the match? And I think that it's definitely a lot for a manager to think about.
What do you think of the physicality question, Paddy? So there's a few comments coming in. Stevie Stafford, good to see Stevie here. He's saying that we were out-muscled by Dundee that second half and defensively poor from midfield back the way, but we should have been 3 goals up before they scored, which we've covered. It was evident from an early part in the second half, Austin Trusty was struggling. He was finding himself with the ball under his feet. He was making poor decisions. His judgment was wrong. He was getting ruffled up by Simon Murray. So I've spoken about various players. So Josh Mulligan is the boy that was on the right-hand side, 22 years of age. Aaron Donnelly will get to 21 years of age. Adewemi, the guy that scored the goal, he's 19. But then you've got Simon Murray at 32, and behind him, Mohamed Salah at 31. They've got a nice blend of youth and experience, and I think that's important for a side like Dundee, who at times will need to mix it up, and at other times show a bit of creativity. You'll have seen the moment just before Donnelly scored his goal, though, and him and Trusty are having a bit of verbals. And I'm saying him and Trusty are having verbals. It's actually just Donnelly. Donnelly seems to have the measure of the Austin Trusty. He's still a young man, right? But he's 26, so a bit older and a bit more experienced in football terms. But Donnelly just looked like he had him rattled. You seen the bit where he stood on his toe, and Trusty's gone down when he's his toe stood on. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
And I just think at that point, before he's even converted the header, Donny's got the upper hand. I know I've skipped on here, Paddy. We'll get back to Young's goal. Of course, I'm going to get back to Young's goal. What do you think of that? The comment from Stevie and others about being out-muscled and about Celtic losing the physical battle on the night.
Yeah, I think it's there. I do think the defensive side, the fact that they were putting so many bodies into the 6-yard box, it's obviously something they've looked at and thinking for whipping it in and putting it in on top of the goalkeeper. I've seen a few people saying that Kasper Schmeichel needs to come and get that. He's nowhere near it. He's absolutely nowhere near it, and it's a crowd of bodies, and that's the goalkeepers union speaking up there. That's for Austin Trusty to deal with. And yes, I think he's automatically told himself from the minute he never got, if he wanted a foul for that supposed stamp, he's told himself he's not winning anything there. And that's a real learning moment for him. And I think that we don't play football at Celtic. We never have. We've never been guys that will just drop down easily like that. And I think that if there's Callum McGregor there, if there's even Cameron and Carter Vickers there, and our manager, I'm pretty sure, would be very quick to say, you don't do that. You do not do that here, and you need to be stronger mentally, and you need to make sure that they're worried about coming to challenge you, not the other way about.
Yeah, it was and is concerning, but as I said earlier on, that's the marker now for Trusty, and it's how he responds. I don't know, just quick one then. Does he start again on Saturday night against Killie in the Cup, or do we now go back to Scales? And then I think going back to Danny Henderson's point, Danny, who I mentioned earlier on, I'll be back in the cycle again. So it's Scales till he makes a mistake, then it's Trusty's till he makes a mistake. Do you go back in that loop, or do you say, do you know what? Austin Trusty's my guy. He's had a poor night, but I'm going to stick with him. What do you think the manager will do? What do you think he should do?
I think you stick with him. And the reason I say that is that if Derek McInnes is watching that, he'll get a call for his good pal Tony Dock and say, just got on Austin Trusty. And I think Brendan Rodgers will want to see what he's capable of on Saturday and how he responds. Still very early in his Celtic career, 6 million spent in the guy. I think it's a learning curve for him, but we need to see how he reacts. I think for me, in terms of how we like to play football, he's had a bad night with the ball at his feet. Absolutely, I wouldn't hide away from that. But he is quicker coming out the back than what Liam Scales is, in my opinion. And Scales, as we've spoke about, is very back to the wall defending, which is absolutely fine. But the 2 games we're getting into against Kilmarnock and Young Boys, and no disrespect to Young Boys, they're not going to be back to the wall games. They're games we need to take control of and go and try and put the pressure on. So Austin Trusty still gets the nod for me.
Me too. But it's all of a sudden a massive night, maybe a massive crossroads in his Celtic career. He's had a bad night. He's had a really poor night at Dundee Park, and it's how he responds here at Celtic Park on Saturday. Just in terms of Young Boys as well, Pat McLaughlin makes the point. They won 1-0 away to Galatasaray in August to qualify for the Champions League. So as much as they're struggling, they've kind of generally found themselves as the whipping boys on their day, and any team at that level on their day, can perform. And Celtic will really need to be moving through the gears between now and next Wednesday to stand up to all of that. And Paddy, let's get back to Young's goal. Obviously, my goal order is all over the place, but we come out for the second half, one each, and it's Young that gets on the end of it. Now, I'm well on record as my support of Young, and I'm not going to spend too much time on him tonight. I was really pleased for him to get his goal. It's a goal he's got to finish, but he's in the right place at the right time to do so. But there's a situation in the build-up where it's Kyogo that gets the ball on the right-hand side, and the biggest criticism, or one of the biggest criticisms of Young just now, is that he's doing all the good things. He's strong, he's physical, he works hard, and he can take on a man, but it's his end product, and he's not managing to flash those balls across goal for the Idas and the Kyogos of this world. And it's Kyogo that shows him how it's done. Kyogo finds himself down the right-hand side, and it's a brilliant ball in for Adam Ida. He gets the connection on it, but it doesn't quite work out for Ida. But there's Young on hand to nod it in. It would like to be his goal. What I really did like, actually, was how pleased his teammates were for him. They were all over him, and he's clearly seems to be a popular guy in the dressing room, and that'll have given him a lift. But in the bigger picture, he needs to now look across to what Kyogo done and what Nicholas Kuhn does, frequently for Celtic, and take those lessons on board. So your thoughts on the goal and the bigger picture for Young?
Well, first of all, I think we're all happy to say that how effective Kyogo is in that right hand side has been a 2 incredible performances, in my opinion, and definitely a player with pass marks yesterday. I thought he's very clever. He's just a very clever, technically, tactically gifted footballer, and I think that The ball in is just, it's pulling defenders all over the place. A very, very good goal. We made their goalkeeper come out and gamble for it, and obviously it's fell in the right place for Yang. Yang's there at the right place at the right time, and he's still got a bit of work to do in order to make sure he gets his head on it first. I thought he was comfortable, but I just feel that that's all I'm saying about him, Tino. And that's the thing for me that's still concerning me. I think any player in that position with no goalkeeper there and maybe a player 2 steps behind you, you should be putting it in the net from that position. He's took it well. I wouldn't disagree with that. But I just thought after the first half, I thought he faded away. And that's the concern for me. I don't think he's realising the level he's playing at and the scope that he's playing at. He's under the microscope every game, and he needs to quickly realise that, because that's 51 games now and 2 goals. It's not a great return.
Yeah, 50 games, 2 exceptional goals. Bullet header last night to put us 2-1 ahead. But he is, in all seriousness, he is under the microscope, and him, Adam Ida, now Trusty, and a couple of others just find themselves in that boat. And I'm repeating myself, but that's the challenge. How do you respond? Yang will know he's under pressure. Yeah. He'll be aware of the headlines. Obviously English isn't his first language, but he'll know what's going on, and I'm sure his manager will have had several conversations with him, and it's how he responds. And there's a couple of things that do give me hope. His age at 22, there's room for progression there. He's under the right manager to develop, and I'd like to think the manager's spending decent time with him. But maybe a loan spell where he starts every game and gets goals and assists and confidence might be the move, or maybe he stays and learns under Rodgers. We'll need to wait and see. But good for him to get his goal, but he does need to do more in a Celtic shirt. The biggest frustration at that point, Paddy, though, is that goal's in the 52nd minute. We concede in the 54th. We've spoken about the physical battle, but I think losing a goal so cheaply after scoring is a mental thing. It's a psychological thing. And again, it's down Celtic's left-hand side. Trusty, not clever at all. And before you know it, Carter Vickers has now got a couple of own goals on his record, but it's because he's finding himself at times having to mop up, for others' mistakes. And he makes it's not a desperate lunge, but, he tries to get across best he can. And how's your luck that it just skids off your studs and ends up in the back of the net? But from a Celtic point of view, it's frustrating to lose the goal. It's Josh Mulligan that I mentioned, who I thought had a really decent game. Aye. But it just seems very avoidable from our point of view. And if the tone hadn't already been set, it was certainly set at that point in the game.
Well, it was, and I think that, you then think to yourself, we've been dragged into something that we could have easily have avoided. And I think that we have seen this a couple of times this season. I would go back to the cup final and conceding so quickly after that. What's happening there? And I go back to what I'm talking about in terms of, as your leaders a little bit unsure about their performances, that they're not switching on after conceding a goal, and maybe taking the blame on their own shoulders and not actually just telling people to focus and just get their heads around the game. I don't know. It has been a thing of this season, and again, that's that is the little bit of concern that we have with this team. I think we're all confident with them going forward. They have the odd off day here or there, but they are scoring goals for fun. But it's remaining switched on at the back, and I know that we've got a very, very strong record this season in terms of clean sheets, in terms of our defensive record overall. But it does seem to be that when a team does come out against us and put that pressure on us, we are panicking a little bit at the back, and we need to address it quickly. Yeah,
we really do. The strength of Celtic domestically, versus, if I was going to say most all other sides, is that when things aren't going so great, you can go to the reserves and you can bring on Arne Engels, Rio Hatate, Nicholas Kuhn at the one time. Tony Dock referenced it in his interview, but that's daunting for anybody. That's 3 really, strong players to bring on. They all come on at the 61st minute. And at that point, 2 weeks in the game, yes, it's been scrappy, but you're thinking, right, great, we've got these guys on now, we'll just kick on. And it just didn't go that way. And actually, all 3 cut frustrated figures. I don't think Hatate brought much to the party at all. We'll get to Engels' contribution later on, and Kuhn's. But even Kuhn has been the star man. He was trying things and he wasn't quite able to make things happen. And I think what you did have was a situation where Dundee's tails were absolutely up. They were buzzing. They were so aggressive in the most positive sense. They were just pressing relentlessly. I think you need to give real credit to what they done and how they done so. But Celtic just didn't find the answers. And when you're looking for someone to go and get a third for Celtic or even a fourth, it is Dundee that get it. We've covered the goal a wee bit already. It's Donnelly. They just out-muscles and out-manoeuvres Austin Trusty at the back post. I think you're right. Goalie, no chance for the goalie. It's a very good header. It's high into the net. And it's just something we need to deal with far better. And you could almost see it coming based on how Trusty had performed in the game so far.
Yeah.
And then that happens and the head goes further down. And it's not done him any favours at all. We've got the lip-reading experts all around us now. So the suggestions are that Brendan Rodgers said, weak as piss.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. Who says that for a start? That's a funny turn of phrase.
He definitely says it, Tino.
Do you think so?
100%.
I'm going to need
100%. Honestly, like, and do you know who says it? Brendan Rodgers says it because, I think he does. I think he does.
A rotten phrase. I'll need to go back and check the stills pad. I'll need to slow it down to half speed and assess it.
There you
go. Whatever he says, whether he says that or not, he's not happy. You can tell, and he's voiced up after the game at how unhappy he is. And sometimes you go to these games, Dens Park away or wherever, Ross County away, very recently, and it turns into a battle, and that's just the way it's got to be. It's part and parcel of Scottish football and has been since day dot in terms of the game here. And it is a challenge for Celtic because you're trying to build a side for Europe and the free-flowing football that takes place in Europe and football being played in the right manner for the most part. But physicality, some of the dark arts and different things will come into play here. Look, Donnelly, Aaron Donnelly is right to step on Trusty's toe. Can get away with it, you get away with it. He's done all those things, and it's up to Trusty and other players to respond. What about Donnelly himself? He's ex-Notts Forest, so he was with Forest, who are obviously a Premier League side. In fact, second place in the Premier League right now. And he's had a few spells on loan, including one at Dundee. He's now signed permanently. I watched him play against Rangers last week. Very good again last night. Should Celtic consider a proper centre-half like that, or does he maybe not have the ball-playing skills that we need?
I've not seen enough on the deck, to be honest, and I've not seen enough of him. I wouldn't lie about that at all, Tino. But I thought he took his goal very well. He got up higher on the big man, no problem. And I think if you've got that aggression in the box, Celtic over the years have had aggressive defenders in the box that have won plenty in there and been mopped up anything. I think it's maybe over the last 2-3 years that we've seen a lot more of our centre halves been made to play the ball, keep the ball on the deck and play out from the back. So I think that is still the dream for us to continue to play that style. And I go with a lot of people stating about a more enforcer type midfielder, and I totally get it. It's what we've been used to watching under the likes of Martin O'Neill, Neil Lennon, under the likes of Scott Brown, and what we've watched over the years of these guys dictating our midfield. Seeing Gypsy King's comment there, withYoung is a great shout as well, and I get that, but I just think that our style of football is completely different from what that used to be, and I think that we're rather, instead of getting involved in midfield battles, our aim is to try and get the ball out our feet and get it released as quick as possible. Another reason why we don't lump the ball long, we don't have a lot of players with height up the top. It's always on the deck, and listen, it might not be everyone's cup of tea. Believe me, I'm one of the first people at Celtic Park, when I see he's knocking it about the back, I start to get palpitations. But at the end of the day, this is what these guys are getting money for. And actually, you want to identify quality that can do that. And I think that we do have it. I just think sometimes we're going to have moments where we come up against a team that challenges it. And we've had that. So how do we adapt? That's the big thing for me.
And in terms of the earlier question, Paddy, about the squad rotation, as I say, the manager can't not rotate during this relentless schedule, but do you feel that we maybe just don't have the strength and depth? I know we've got a strong squad, but maybe just still not of the calibre and quality to rotate without seeing a drop in quality on the pitch?
I think so, and it's no disrespect to the likes of Young or Palmer, but you're going for the win there with Palmer coming on. He's not kicked his backside since he joined us, I think a good few months when he first started. But then you're looking at our backline. We've been crying out for reinforcements in that for quite a while, and I think that we've spoke about that left-hand side, well, me especially, that's the area that we need to address, and by all accounts, it's looking as if we might be looking to do something in that side of it tonight. But our manager identifies that. We as fans see it. We have a very strong system if it wants to be. I still think we're maybe just a few pieces away from getting it fully right. But what a good position to be at in the league. What a good position to be at in Europe. If we go and we do win this game next week against Young Boys, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more players coming in after that game.
I've seen somewhere that apparently you can only make 3 changes to your Champions League squad. Have you heard that? Is that the case?
Would make sense. I always remember reading in the previous formats that they do put a bit of a cap on it in terms of how many players you can introduce. And even depending on how many you release from the squad, there's still a cap on it. So I think, we do need players that are going to be comfortable in those tight situations, especially if we're going to get European teams that will come and press against us, and especially if we get teams in the league that put us under a bit of pressure. I think a lot of teams are clever to allow our back line to bring the ball out from the back, but it's when it gets into that midfield area, when those positions are full, when players have been able to come on to our 3 midfielders, it's how quick can those guys release the ball from the back for me that's stopping us from really pushing on further from the midfield in those bigger games.
Yeah, and we've spoken about the physical challenges, the mental challenges at times, and one guy who you've absolutely alluded to, Paddy, that could deal with all that and then some is KT. And there's one way to forget about a 3-3 draw at Dens, and it's announcing Kieran Tierney. So the talk's ramped up. You might have seen that Fabrizio Romano, generally the guy in the know with these types of transfers, has come out with something today saying that it seems to be edging ever closer. So I think that'd be a great move, and we'll see where we get to there. And in other areas, Paddy, I think 2 to 3 quality additions would really stand us in good stead moving forward. Let's get to the equaliser, and you need to credit the guys for digging in. It's a 93rd minute goal, and what we do know about the Celtic side is they don't give up. They go to the final whistle, and they should, but it's what we've come to expect. And it is Nicholas Kuhn, and when he picks up the ball, he's got one thing in mind. He wants to drive the defender and get the shot away. I think his shot was travelling. I thought it might have hit the back of the net, just in terms of how he's connected. And Silla's come in. Silla's had a really good game. I've seen him a few times now, and I think he's a really effective player for Dundee. He's come in, though. There is no question in the world it's a penalty. Don Robertson gives a penalty. VAR will verify it. And then you've got Rangers fans greeting about it. Typical. What time's the Celtic penalty? 93rd minute. Ali McCoy's came up with some rubbish about it today. It's as clear a penalty as you will ever see. So there's no debating that. And then it's on England.
Sorry, Robbie, did you see the fan that thought it was ex-Celtic player, Mo Silla?
Jeez.
He's now 47. He was like, Silla, in brackets, ex-Celtic player.
Still doing his thing. So I mean, Arnie Engels steps up. It's a pressure penalty, Paddy. It's right in front of the Celtic fans, which brings a different type of pressure. But I think, what's the start now? Is it 5-5 or 6-6 for Engels? Did you catch that?
Yeah, I think it's 6 out of 6 now, I believe.
Tucks it away well. And at that point, you're thinking, can Celtic get a final chance? But it's not to be. And I think overall, again, I'll state it from a neutral point of view, it's a great game of football. It's end-to-end. It's 6 goals. It's, it's high drama. But it finishes 3 each. And Rodgers again made the statement, if you can't win the game, make sure you don't lose it. And that's important mentally. But there's so many takeaways. And you know that Brendan Rodgers is big on his analysis and his post-match with his players, and they'll spend ample time on that, between today and tomorrow or any other stage in the week to right the wrongs. And there's plenty of wrongs, let's be frank about it. There's a lot going on there that Celtic need to get better on, and I've no doubt he'll address that. Question being, as I say, we're now getting into the league games have taken on less significance given the margin at the top of the table. It's currently 15 points, and we'll see what Aberdeen do at Ibrox tonight. But there's less pressure on the league stuff, but we're now getting into pressure football. Saturday night, it's cup football. You lose, you're out the Scottish Cup, and that's that. And then we know the pressure on the Young Boys game next Wednesday. Taking it one game at a time, though, Paddy, how important now does this game against Killie become on Saturday?
It's massive, Tino, and I think, obviously, I know where you're coming from in terms of, there's a little bit less pressure on the league, but actually that could be at our detriment as well. I think when you race away with a league like what we have at the moment, there is a tendency to think that job's done. And actually, what you're going up against and how your mentality is going into each game isn't the same as what it was at the beginning of the season when you're gearing up for a long year ahead. So it's a manager's job to make sure that, you know, the players are switched on, no matter what the game, no matter the competition, and making sure that they are ready and they know that, you know, this game against Kilmarnock on Saturday, it's not going to be easy. And then the game against Young Boys is our biggest game in a long time at European football. And I think they need to realise that you have to put in the same performances no matter what competition you're playing at Celtic, but also just for your own frame of mind and making sure that you're going into every game thinking, if we play at that level, we're going to win, instead of if we play at that level, we're in trouble.
Yeah, all good points, Paddy. Huge plus about the next couple of games, as Pat states, is that they're home games, 2 home games, and that is massive in itself. And at this moment in time, I don't know if I round off the stats. Celtic are 1 away, 1 and 4. It's not hugely dramatic. It's not a massive start, but we've won against Ross County, drawn last night with Dundee, got beat off Rangers and drew with Dundee United before that. So 1 away, 1 and 4. It's, let's call it mildly concerning at this moment in time, and we'll see where that takes us. But the flip side is the home form's exceptional. Didn't lose a home game in the whole of 2024 calendar year. We've been so strong at home, and this is a massive opportunity. And actually, it's been a relatively bumpy 4, 5, even 6 weeks for Celtic. You know, a few ups and downs after the phenomenal form of the early part of the season. But I'll take all of that. I'll take everything that Janzi's thrown at us so far if we get the result on Saturday and the result next week. And I think, aside from everything else, Brendan Rodgers is good at keeping his calm and keeping the focus for him and his players. And again, I'll stress that there's no doubt, and this is why he's paid the substantial wages that he gets. I've no doubt that he'll be making the moves at Lennoxtown this week to make sure we're ready for Saturday and beyond. Paddy, lots going on there at Dens Park last night. I think we've covered most of it. Probably missed some of it, but so be it. But your own final thoughts, as I say, as we kind of head away from that one, take the lessons and head into 2 massive games against Killie and then Young Boys next week.
I think we're every right to just be a little bit concerned about the performance, and I understand that. And I think that it's great that we can look at what we've given so far to the season, and the position that we are in is a very, very strong position. And I think that what I would hopefully hope that all Celtic fans will do is that we're getting behind the team on Saturday and we're getting behind the team on Wednesday, and judge them after those 2 games. If we've not got the results we want, then there is definitely areas that need to be looked at. I think that we know that there's areas that need to be strengthened, but I think the mentality side of things definitely needs to come into it if we don't navigate through these 2 games the way that we're hoping for. It's not to say that they're going to be easy games though, and it's making sense of the fact that I think any club playing in the Champions League, they're there on merit, they're there on they're there on the fact that they're playing at a very strong level, and I think that we need to respect whoever we come up against in that tournament. And Young Boys are no mugs, albeit they sit at the bottom of that table. But what we need to kind of look at is do reflect on the performance in Atlanta, do reflect on the performance against Rangers at the beginning of the season, do reflect on the mental resilience to go and win the League Cup, and then look at what you've done a number on when we go and beat Leipzig this season as well. So there's been some poor performances, absolutely, but there's been some extremely strong performances from us as well. Our goal scoring has been free, like free range for us. The full year we've been all over teams, and we are still scoring plenty of goals. I just think we just need to tighten things up a little bit. As fans, we need to support them and just hope that we can navigate through the next 2 games, and then things start to get exciting again.
They do, Paddy. I think that's a really good summary of everything, and a couple of takeaways from that. I think we're 80 plus goals, 80 something goals, free flowing. Pat McLaughlin, Pat's good for the stats. He's rhymed off a few good stats earlier on in the piece, and I think your overarching point about judges after these next 2 games, and at that point, if people want to, if Celtic don't for whatever reason get the right results, go hell for leather by all means. But I just think you need to. I know we've used the term credit in the bank, but I'll reiterate, we're 15 points clear, League Cup's in the bag, and we're 1 game away from massive progress in Europe, which is something Celtic have been lacking for a long, long time. So I think you need to support that. I think you need to back that. The neighbours are all over it. And I think you just need to get behind the team, as you say. 2 massive home games It'll be certainly a sellout against Young Boys. Should be busy enough against Kilmarnock on Saturday night. And I think this is where we as fans really do need to step up, Paddy, and play our part, because there's ups and downs and there's mumping and moaning, which is all part of the joy of being a football fan. You know, we'll agree, we'll disagree, something I like, you won't, vice versa, and various folks in the comments. And we encourage folks in the comments to disagree with us. And some folks don't need encouragement, which is absolutely fine. That's all part of the fun and games. But I think at the end of the day, we're all behind Celtic. We should all be behind Celtic. And I think we can absolutely play a part in the next couple of games. And as you then say, Paddy, that is when the excitement kicks in. You get a big one against Kilmarnock, that gives you the confidence going into Young Boys. The place will be bouncing against Young Boys on Wednesday night. And if Celtic get the win, it could just, kickstart and propel your season. And managers, Brendan Rodgers, Ange, these kind of guys, they talk about moments for individuals and moments for teams. And what a moment that would be for Celtic on Wednesday if we take that next step forward in this new Champions League format. So loads to be excited about. Yes, there's things not to be too happy about against Dundee, but loads to be excited about moving forward. Paddy, that'll do for now, eh? 6 goals, lots of drama, plenty covered. Thanks to you, Paddy, for joining us here on a Wednesday night. Thanks to everyone who continues to listen to the Celtic Exchange and supporters. Remember to visit the show notes or check out the celticexchange.supercast.com for more information on how you can get ad-free listening and early access to the weekly show and support us throughout 2025. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. We'll be back on Friday with the pre-match for that killer game. We'll see you all again then. All the best, guys.